What's up, everybody? Cole Sands here with your weekly fish report. It is December 20th, 2021, and the fishing's been pretty good. It's winter time, the water's cooling off, and you're going to have some good days, you're going to have some bad days, just depending on the weather. But as a whole, the lake's really been on an upswing these past couple of weeks, which is a great thing to see. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive into it. The water temp is anywhere from about 46 at the coldest to 54 at the warmest. It just really depends on what creek you're in, if you're main lake or if you're back in a creek, stuff like that. So there's a lot of things going on, but this is a time of year I like to keep it pretty simple. I keep 4 or 5 baits on deck pretty much the whole time, and besides that, that's about it. So there's really 2 different patterns going on right now. There's already some fish that are in their wintertime holes, which, the wintertime spots I'm talking about are the places where there's creek channel swings, there's a little bit deeper water, maybe some creek mouths. Like let's take the mouth of Chester Frost, for example. The colder it gets, the more fish are going to move out to that deeper water close to the main river. And there's fish there in them places. Now, if you go in the creeks, where the channels swing up close to flats or swing up close to bluffs, some channel swings, there's fish in those already. And to target those fish, I'm really just throwing 2, maybe 3 different baits. The first one is an Alabama rig. And an Alabama rig is one of the most effective wintertime fishing baits ever invented, if not the most, probably the most. And one that I've been throwing a lot lately is the Diamond Baits Alabama rig. And what's cool about it is, first off, that head design. A lot of Alabama rigs, let's take this one for example. Nothing against this Alabama rig, but that head design looks like a shad. So you'll throw an Alabama rig pretty often, and you'll get bites that you don't hook up on. Now in Tennessee, we're only allowed to throw 3 hooks, so maybe they're biting the dummy swimmer, but sometimes I feel like they're biting that head. So with this one, you don't get a whole lot of head bites. And another cool thing about it, it comes in a cool little tube, which is nice for storage, but as soon as you pull it out, it already expands to just how you need it. I might bend them out a little bit, but it's really, that's ready to go. Tie it on, put some swim baits on it, and let's go. And then probably the personal favorite thing about it, one, it's super strong. I've already caught a lot of fish on them, haven't broke one yet, but 2, it's this little swivel design. It's not a snap swivel. So, in the wintertime it's cold a lot, you're wearing gloves, and you don't want to take your gloves off to mess with swim baits and stuff. So all you have to do is start that eyelet of that jig head on that swivel and just twist it. And it'll twist right on. So you can actually put these swim baits on while wearing gloves, which that's really, really cool. As far as jig heads, I throw an 1/8 ounce jig head. I throw 3 hooks, so 3 1/8 ounce jig heads, 2 dummy swimmers, and that's my setup. Very rarely do I go heavier than that. If I'm fishing a little bit deeper, I'll just count it down. A lot of times I'll watch it on my Panoptics unit just to see how deep I'm working my bait. But that's been a really good bait. I had a client last week that caught an 8.5 on that same Alabama rig right there. And as far as swim baits go, it comes down to a lot of preference. I like a true bass a lot. It looks super realistic. That's the 4.5 inch. If I'm fishing the upper end of the lake, let's say Grasshopper North, I feel like they're eating bigger bait already. I've seen a lot of fish eat gizzard shad, and I'll kind of go with that bigger swim bait, that 4.5 inch. Now down the lake, let's say Harrison Bay, Chester Frost area, and I fished both some lately. I'll go with a little bit smaller swim bait, and that's a little Gambler Easy. That's a 3.5 inch Easy Vibe, and it's kind of got a little different action, but they both work great. It just kind of depends on the size of bait. But that's pretty much my setup. Throwing it on a 20-pound fluorocarbon. I throw it a little bit everywhere. I'll throw it shallow some, I'll throw it deep, but it's really good in them in-between stage, in-between areas where you're going from shallow to deep. Let's say you're throwing up to 3 foot and bringing it out to about 15. Places like that is where I really like an Alabama rig, as well as bluffs. If you're fishing a steep bluff bank, you can parallel it with an Alabama rig, or you can throw up to it. It's just a very versatile bait that you can kind of control its depth based on how fast you reel it. And then besides that, the other baits I'm using to catch some fish in those wintertime holes, them channel swings and a little bit deeper banks, stuff like that, is a Yozuri jerk bait. That's kind of a sexy shad color there. Got some good fish on it. And it doesn't seem like the jerkbait bite's really picked up yet, but I am catching a few key fish every day on that thing. I am throwing the shallower version some too. And I'll throw that color some and that shallow version. It just depends on how deep I'm fishing. I don't want my jerkbait to be hitting the bottom. I want it to be about a foot or two above the bottom at least. So if I'm fishing shallow, maybe around some grass, stuff like that, I'm throwing that one. If I'm fishing more main lake, maybe some deeper stuff, I'm gonna throw that +1, you know, that little bit deeper one. And those are my two go-to colors. You go to the Yozuri website, that's the two I would buy for Lake Chickamauga. I've caught them on several other colors on different lakes, but those two colors right there are my go-tos. So that's one pattern that's really been going on. And then we had some warm weather this past week, and I got on a really good shallow bite. And there was two deals going on shallow. One, you had to find the grass. If you got in some shallow grass, 3 foot and less, I was yo-yoing a rattle trap. Or in this case, I was yo-yoing a Yozuri rattling vibe, which is a really good rattle trap. None of y'all have ever thrown it. Throwing two sizes. Throwing the 5/8, and that's a royal purple. Caught some good ones on that this past weekend. It seems like if you go with a little bit heavier rattle trap, like that 5/8, it's a little bit easier to rip out that grass. However, if the fish are eating a little bitty bait, you kind of need to match the hatch. So we caught some good ones on that, but we got in some areas where it felt like they were just kind of slapping at our rattling vibe. What we did there is we downsized. That's the sexy shad color. We downsized to the 3/8. You can tell this one's been chewed on a little bit. The eyes are missing. It's been bit pretty good these past few days. But doing the same thing, letting it get down that grass, ripping it out. Sometimes we're just kind of feathering it through really slow. But that's been probably our main bait the past 3 days. That little 3/8 ounce Yozuri rattling vibe has been a killer. And what's cool about the Yozuri 3/8 ounce, most companies don't make a 3/8. They either make a quarter or a half. But that 3/8, it's the size of most 1/4 ounce traps, but it rips a lot better. I mean, you can snap it out of grass a lot better than you can most 1/4 ounce traps. I'm throwing that smaller one on 14-pound test, throwing a little bit bigger rattle trap on 16-pound test, fluorocarbon for both of those. And we also got on a deal Saturday. We had a really warm day. We got in a couple creeks and pockets where they were pushing shad super shallow. And we kind of followed the bait. There wasn't necessarily grass in those areas, but we just got shallow, in the middle of that bait, picked up a couple, smaller rattling style baits and caught some nice fish, caught a bunch of fish. And then last but not least, pretty much the same areas, caught some big ones on this Saturday as well. Just a good old chatterbait, shad color, throwing it around grass. It seemed like there had to be bait in the area. But there's definitely two things going on right now. You can either fish shallow in the grass and, throw them rattling baits, those chatterbaits, stuff like that. Or you can scoot off a lot of the stuff, pick up an Alabama rig and a jerk bait to catch fish doing that. I've been doing a little bit of both, but, fish your strengths. Always fish your strengths and just, do what you're confident in. If you do what you're confident in, you'll probably eventually run across some fish. But, those are the 4, 5, 6 baits I would have tied on right now. And hopefully it'll bring you some success in the water. But thanks, guys. Tune in next week. I should have another fishing report up. And thanks for listening.